The stars of the Aurelian Empire stretched across half the galaxy. Their ships shone like silver birds, graceful and precise, each movement planned with care. Among these stars lived Lyraean, daughter of High Chancellor Oran. She had grown up believing that her people were the most advanced and peaceful race in known space. The Aurelians saw themselves as guardians of order, wisdom, and logic, and they believed that humans were the opposite of all those things. From her earliest lessons, Lyraean had been taught that humanity was dangerous, too emotional, too unpredictable. Their wars had burned entire planets. Their greed had poisoned their own worlds. When the Aurelian Council spoke of them, it was always with a tone of pity and warning. Humans, her tutor once said, are clever but uncontrolled. They build empires of fire and then mourn the ashes. Lyraean had believed every word. She served as an observer for the council, gathering data on other species. When the reports on humans arrived, they confirmed everything she had been taught. She read about their civil wars, their hunger for territory, their constant experiments that sometimes went wrong. Every file seemed to prove that humans were creatures of passion, not reason. They may have intelligence, Lyraean told her father during one council session, but they are not ready for the stars. They carry their chaos with them wherever they go. Her father had nodded. And that chaos, my daughter, must never be allowed to touch our order. Soon after, the council turned its attention to a small human colony called New Terra. The planet held rare minerals essential for Aurelian star drives. The humans had only a few thousand settlers there and no strong defenses. Many in the council suggested taking control of the planet under the name of protection. It would be easy, and the humans would hardly resist. Lyraean supported the idea. To her, humans were too short-sighted to care for such a resource. She was chosen to join the expedition fleet as an observer. She would record how quickly the humans surrendered and how efficiently the Aurelians restored order. It was, to her mind, a simple mission, until everything changed. The fleet left Aurelia in silence, a line of shining vessels moving through the darkness of space. Lyraean stood on the observation deck of her ship, the Varanis, watching the faint blue light of the human colony growing on her screen. It was just another world to her. Dust, clouds, and mountains. But the universe had other plans. As the fleet neared the outer belt of the system, an unexpected asteroid storm struck. Thousands of frozen rocks, large as buildings, swept through the void. The ships turned quickly, but the Varanis was hit before the shields could stabilize. Lyraean was thrown from her seat as alarms screamed through the corridors. The ship's lights flickered red. "Power loss in the main reactor," shouted the pilot. "Shields down to 15%, cried another voice. Lyraean grabbed the control bar to steady herself. The floor shook beneath her boots. She could feel the vibration of the engines struggling to keep balance. "Can we jump to safety?" she demanded. "Negative, Ambassador. The drive core is unstable." Before she could speak again, the ship was struck once more. The sound of tearing metal filled the air. The pilot shouted, "We're losing control. Brace for impact." The world turned white. When Lyraean opened her eyes, she saw smoke and shattered glass. The ship had crashed on the surface of a planet, New Terra. The hull was broken open to the wind. A weak sun hung above the hills. Her crewmates lay unconscious or worse. The communication system was silent. She tried to stand, pain shooting through her leg. She limped toward the control console and pressed the distress beacon. Nothing. The power cells were dead. Lyraean took a deep breath and stepped outside. The air was sharp and dry. She looked across the rocky field and saw signs of human structures far in the distance. Metal towers, smoke trails, perhaps a small settlement. Her heart tightened. If the humans found her, they might take her prisoner. The Aurelian Empire had not yet revealed its plan to them. To the humans, she would look like an invader. Still, she had no choice. If she stayed, she would die. She started walking. Hours later, as the twin suns of New Terra set, Lyraean reached the edge of a human outpost. Small shelters stood close together, their walls made of steel and dust filters. She could hear soft humming from energy generators and faint voices from within. She hid behind a broken cargo crate, her silver uniform dusty and torn. That was when she heard footsteps. A man appeared around the corner. His uniform was worn but clean, with a patch showing the flag of Earth. His face was tired, but his eyes were bright. He carried a plasma rifle slung across his back. When he saw her, he froze. "Hey, are you hurt?" he called out. His voice was steady but kind. Liren didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her with such simple concern. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. I crashed, she said, choosing her words carefully. My ship is gone. The man lowered his weapon. You're lucky you made it out alive. These storms are rough this season. He moved closer, scanning the sky as if searching for more wreckage. Name's Rin. I'm with the Frontier Defense Team. Come on, let's get you inside before the wind gets worse. He didn't ask who she was or where she came from. He simply helped her walk. His hand was rough but gentle. It confused her. Among the Aurelians, kindness was measured, calculated, given only when it served purpose. But Rin helped her for no reason other than that she was hurt. Inside the outpost, warmth surrounded her. Humans worked in small groups, fixing broken machines, preparing meals, laughing softly even after long hours. The air smelled of oil and baked bread. Liren's heart felt strange. Everything here was imperfect, noisy, messy, but alive. Rin led her to a seat near a heater. You look half frozen, he said. You need food and water. She watched him move with simple care, filling a metal cup and handing it to her. Why are you helping me? She asked at last. He shrugged. Because you need help. That's what people do, she didn't understand. Even for strangers? He smiled faintly. Especially for strangers. The words stayed in her mind. That night, Liren sat by the window of the small cabin Rin had given her. She could see the night sky, the stars of her home far away. Her people were probably searching for her, scanning the system. She should have felt comfort in that, but instead she felt something else. A quiet curiosity. The humans were not what she expected. They laughed while exhausted. They shared when they had little. They argued yes, but always forgave. She had watched them repair their machines with creativity her people would call primitive. But it worked. She found herself studying Rin. He was no scholar, no strategist, just a soldier keeping the outpost safe. Yet he spoke with hope. He talked about how humans would one day explore the galaxy not to conquer, but to learn. He showed her pictures of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, cities filled with lights. When he spoke, his eyes carried warmth that reached beyond words. Liren began to feel a strange ache in her chest. It was not fear, not sadness, something new. She didn't know it yet, but it was the first small spark of what humans called love. Days passed. Liren continued to pretend to be a traveler. She hid her true origin, saying only that she had come from a faraway station. Rin didn't question much. He taught her simple human ways, how to eat their food, how to read some of their language, how to operate their small machines. She, in return, listened and learned. When the settlers talked about their dreams to make New Terra a real home, to raise children here, to grow forests where now there was only dust, Lorraine felt something stir deep inside. How could a species so fragile hold such large dreams? At night, she stood outside the cabin, watching Rin repair a drone under the soft light of a lantern. His hands were steady, his expression calm. He hummed a quiet tune. The tune was simple, but it carried warmth. Why do you sing? She asked. To keep the night away, he said. It helps remind me that we're still alive. Far above the planet, the Aurelian search ships began picking up faint signals from the crash site. Liren's beacon had activated again after a power surge. The Empire now knew where she was. They assumed she had been captured by humans. They prepared a rescue fleet. Down on the surface, Liren had no idea. She only knew that her view of humanity had started to change. The people she once saw as reckless were now brave. The emotions she once called weakness were now strength. And the man she met by accident, the soldier named Rin, had begun to show her that perhaps humans were not unworthy of love at all. Perhaps, she thought, they were the only ones who truly understood it. The morning light on New Terra was soft and golden, spilling across the rough ground of the colony. The storms had passed, leaving the sky a pale blue with ribbons of white cloud. From her small cabin window, Liren watched humans begin their daily work. Some carried tools. Others cleaned solar panels or checked the outer fences that kept wild creatures away. Everything here seemed ordinary, and yet, every small thing surprised her. She had lived her entire life surrounded by perfection. On her homeworld, every building stood straight and smooth. Every street spotless, every plan followed rules. But humans lived with mess. They repaired old machines with mismatched parts, cooked with what little they had, and laughed even when things broke again. Liren could not understand it. Why did they smile when life was hard? Why did they help each other when no one ordered them to? Rin, the soldier who had rescued her, became her quiet guide. He was not talkative, yet every word he spoke carried warmth. He woke early every morning, checked the base perimeter, then helped others before he even ate. Liren followed him sometimes, pretending to observe their daily habits for her research. In truth, she simply wanted to see more of him. One morning, she saw him kneeling beside a broken survey drone. The small machine had lost one of its wings and its engine sputtered weakly. "You fixed these yourself?" she asked. Rin nodded, wiping oil from his hands. "We don't have enough engineers here, so we all learn what we can." He looked at her and smiled. "Humans survive because we don't give up easily." Liren tilted her head, studying the damaged parts. "In my world," she said softly, "machines like this would be replaced, not repaired." "Yeah," he said with a short laugh. "That's the difference. We fix things even when they're half broken. Maybe that's why we're still around." The simplicity of his answer stayed with her. She realized he wasn't just talking about machines. He was talking about people. Later that day, Liren helped the settlement doctor carry supplies. Though her leg was still sore from the crash, she insisted on helping. The humans didn't treat her like an outsider anymore. They called her the traveler and thanked her when she helped. While moving boxes, a young girl approached her, a small child named Mira, with messy brown hair and bright eyes. "Miss Liren," the girl said, tugging at her sleeve. "Did you really fall from the sky?" Liren smiled, unsure what to say. "Something like that." "Then you must be lucky," Mira said. "My dad says only lucky people survive a crash." The child offered her a small carved stone shaped like a bird. "For you," she said. "To keep you safe." Liren accepted it with care, touched by the gesture. In her world, gifts were symbols of politics or power. Here they were given simply out of kindness. She looked at Rin later and whispered, "Your people are strange." He grinned. "We get that a lot." Days passed into weeks. Liren's leg healed, but she did not ask to leave. The humans assumed she had nowhere else to go, and she let them believe that. She spent her time helping in small ways, sorting tools, reading reports, learning human writing. At night, she and Rin often sat outside near the fire pit. The stars above were clear and endless. Rin told stories about Earth, how the oceans shone under the sun, how rain smelled in the forest, how cities glowed like stars at night. His words painted pictures more beautiful than any Aurelian city Liren had ever seen. "Your people," she said once, "destroyed much of your world, yet you speak of it with love." Rin nodded. "We made mistakes, yeah, but we keep trying to fix them. That's what makes us who we are." She thought about that long after he fell asleep beside the fire. Humans were not logical like her people. They were emotional, often foolish, and yet they never stopped hoping. They were fragile, but their hearts were strong. One afternoon, a violent sandstorm swept across New Terra. The winds howled like beasts, shaking the small buildings. People rushed to secure everything that could blow away. Rin ran from cabin to cabin, shouting orders to keep everyone safe. Liren tried to help, but her strength was limited. When the storm ended, the base was covered in dust and debris. A power line had snapped, cutting electricity to the medical station. Rin worked non-stop to fix it. His hands bled from handling sharp metal, but he didn't rest. "Stop," Liren said, kneeling beside him. "You're hurt." He shook his head. "There are people inside who need power for their machines. I can rest later." She stared at him, amazed. He wasn't acting out of duty, he was acting out of care. No command, no reward, just compassion. Without thinking, she placed her hand over his. "You are strange, Rin." He looked up, puzzled. "Is that a bad thing?" She smiled faintly. "No, it is a beautiful thing." He didn't understand what she meant, but she did. For the first time, she felt her beliefs breaking like thin glass. Everything she had been taught about humans, how they were selfish, cruel, unworthy, it all seemed wrong. That night, the stars came out brighter than before. The storm had cleared the sky completely. Rin and Liren sat on the roof of the communication tower, watching the horizon glow with soft light. "Do you ever feel small?" she asked. "When you look at the stars?" Rin laughed softly. "All the time. But it's a good kind of small. Makes me remember there's still more to learn." "You are not afraid of what is out there?" He shook his head. "Maybe a little. But fear keeps us curious. And curiosity keeps us moving forward." Liren looked at him for a long moment. His eyes reflected the starlight. She realized that her world's view of humans was narrow, measured only by their worst moments. But here, sitting beside this man under an endless sky, she saw what made them powerful. It wasn't their technology or armies, it was their hearts. She wanted to tell him who she really was, but she couldn't. Not yet. He would see her as an enemy, and she didn't want that. Not after everything he had shown her. The next morning, the radio tower came alive. Rin was repairing a console when a faint signal crackled through the speakers. It wasn't human, it was Aurelian. The sound of her people's coded frequency filled the room. Liran froze. Her hands trembled. Her people had found her. Rin noticed her face. "You okay?" She forced a nod. Just tired, but inside her heart raced. The signal meant that her people were close. They would come soon, and when they arrived, they would not see this colony as a place of peace. They would see it as a target. She slipped away from the control room and climbed to the roof again. The communicator in her pocket pulsed with a soft blue light. If she answered, they would locate her instantly. If she didn't, they would assume the humans were holding her captive. Either choice would bring danger. She looked down at the settlement. Rin was helping Mira's father repair a roof. The child laughed, throwing bits of dust at him. The sound of joy filled the air. Liran's chest tightened. She couldn't let harm come to these people, not after all they had shown her. She whispered into the wind, "Not yet. Please, not yet." That night, Rin found her standing near the landing ridge looking at the stars. "You've been quiet," he said. "Something wrong?" She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I was thinking about home. Miss it?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "It feels far away now." Rin stood beside her. "You know, traveler, I think you fit here more than you think." She turned to him, surprised. "Why do you say that?" He smiled softly. "Because you see the stars the way we do. Not as something to fear, but as something to reach." His words warmed her heart. She didn't realize that tears had touched her eyes until he looked closer. "Hey," he said gently, "it's okay." For a long moment they stood in silence. The night wind brushed past them. She wanted to tell him everything, about who she was, about the fleet coming for her, but the words stayed locked inside. She didn't want to lose what she had found here. In that quiet moment, she made a silent promise. If the Aurelians came, she would protect these people. If war came, she would stand with the humans. For the first time in her life, Liran realized she didn't just respect humans, she believed in them. And though she didn't yet understand it fully, she had already begun to fall in love with one of them. The air on New Terra had turned colder. The days were shorter, and a thin layer of frost covered the colony roofs each morning. Humans called it the quiet season. To Liran, it was a season of unease. Every time she looked at the sky, she felt the weight of her secret pressing heavier inside her heart. The faint Aurelian signal she had heard a few days ago still haunted her. Her people were coming. She could feel it. Rin noticed the change in her mood. He didn't ask many questions, but his eyes watched her with concern. When she smiled, he saw the sadness behind it. When she laughed, it never lasted long. "Something's bothering you," he said one evening as they stood by the fence line. The wind carried dust across the plain. "You've been distant lately." Liran lowered her gaze. "I'm fine." "You're lying." His tone was gentle, not accusing. "You can trust me, you know." Her heart twisted. She wanted to trust him, she already did. But how could she tell him the truth? He would hate her, fear her, or worse. She couldn't bear that, so she said only, "There are things you would not understand." He smiled faintly. "Then make me understand." She looked at him, unable to speak. His simple kindness broke down all the walls she had built. That night she sat alone in her cabin, the small communicator glowing faintly in her hands. Messages from the Aurelian command blinked across the screen. "Ambassador Liran, your beacon has been detected. Respond immediately. Fleet en route for extraction." Failure to respond will be considered a breach of protocol. She turned off the device. Her fingers shook. They believed she was a captive, but soon they would find the truth. When they arrived, they would see a human colony and assume hostility, and if that happened, there would be war. The next morning began like any other. The settlers worked together to prepare for the cold weeks ahead. Rin supervised supply checks near the storage dome. Liran helped distribute rations and check equipment, but under the calm surface her thoughts raced. During lunch, Rin joined her under the metal shade of a transport crate. "You look like you haven't slept," he said. "I have been thinking," she answered softly. "About what happens when peace meets pride." He frowned. "Sounds like something serious." She nodded. "Rin, if you found out someone close to you was not who you thought they were, what would you do?" He smiled gently. "Depends on who they really are, I guess." Lorraine looked into his eyes, searching for fear or anger, but found none. That small act of trust gave her courage she didn't know she had. Then she whispered, "You should know the truth." She led him to her cabin and closed the door. The air inside was cold and her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the communicator hidden beneath her bed. The moment she activated it, the blue Aurelian symbols lit up. Rin's eyes widened. "What is that?" "My people's device," she said softly. "I am not from a human colony, Rin. I am Aurelian." He froze. The silence stretched between them. "I came here as part of a fleet," she continued, her voice shaking. "We were meant to take this planet under our protection. But my ship crashed. You saved me before they could find me." Rin took a step back, confusion and disbelief in his face. "You mean, you're one of them? The ones watching us?" "Yes," she whispered. "And they are coming soon." For a moment she thought he might shout or call the commander. Instead he took a slow breath. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you deserve to know. Because I cannot lie to you anymore." He stared at her for a long time, then asked quietly, "Are you here to spy on us?" "I was," she admitted. "At first? But everything changed after I met you." Her voice broke. "I saw the way humans live, how you help each other, how you fight for hope. You showed me what my people never understood." Rin looked down, his jaw tight. "The Council's going to want to know about this. If your fleet's coming, we need to prepare." She nodded. "Yes, but you must also know, my people believe you will resist. They will come ready to fight." He met her eyes again. "Then maybe we'll just have to prove them wrong." Word spread quickly through the base after Rin told the commander. The humans didn't attack her or lock her up. Instead, they gathered for a meeting in the mess hall. Faces were tense, voices low. Some didn't trust her. Some wanted to send her away, but Rin stood up for her. "She's not our enemy," he said firmly. "If she wanted to harm us, she had plenty of chances." She stayed. "She helped us." The commander, an older man named Terran, looked at Liren. "You say your people plan to invade?" "Yes, they believe this world belongs to them. But I can stop it if I speak to them." Terran nodded slowly. "Then you'll get your chance." That night, the colony prepared for possible attack. The humans checked their shields, readied their old defense drones, and loaded every working weapon. Liren felt guilt pressed down on her chest like heavy stone. She had brought this danger here, even without meaning to. Rin found her outside near the comm tower. "You okay?" he asked. "No," she admitted. "I fear what will come." He gave a half smile. "That makes two of us." She looked up at the stars, her silver eyes reflecting their light. "If I cannot stop them, they will destroy this place. My people believe logic must rule. They see your emotions as weakness." Rin shook his head. "Emotions aren't weakness, Liren. They're the reason we survive. They're the reason I saved you." Her chest ached at his words. "And that is why I cannot let them harm you." Hours passed. Then the first signal came, bright, powerful, and impossible to miss. The Aurelian fleet had arrived. 3 great ships entered orbit above New Terra, their hulls glowing white against the dark. The ground trembled slightly as their energy fields activated. The humans rushed to defensive positions. Sirens echoed across the base. Liren stood beside Rin on the observation deck, watching the glowing lines streak across the sky. "They will contact us soon," she said. Rin nodded. "Then let's be ready." The radio came alive with a calm voice. "This is Commander Sereth of the Aurelian Empire. Return Ambassador Liren immediately. Humans are to stand down and await further orders." Liren's heart tightened. "They think you've captured me." Rin frowned. "Then we need to make sure they know that's not true." She stepped toward the communicator. "Let me talk to them." Rin hesitated but nodded. She took the microphone and spoke in her native tongue. "This is Ambassador Liren. I am safe. The humans did not harm me." There was silence, then a cold reply. "Ambassador, you are in enemy territory. You will be extracted by force if necessary." She tried again, her voice firm. "No, listen to me. These humans are not what we thought. They are not savages or conquerors. They are builders, dreamers, protectors." "Ambassador," the voice interrupted sharply, "you are compromised. Stand by for retrieval. The connection cut. The humans knew what that meant. The Aurelians were coming down. The base went into full defense mode. Rin turned to her. You tried. That's what matters. Liren shook her head. It is not enough. They will not stop until I make them see. She ran to the landing ridge, pulling free from his grasp. Liren! He called, but she didn't stop. She activated the small Aurelian transmitter she had kept hidden and sent out a burst message. Her own signal, different from the fleet's. It contained one line of code. Do not attack. I choose humanity. The code would reach the command ship directly, bypassing the officers. It was a dangerous act, considered treason by Aurelian law, but she no longer cared. When she turned back, Rin was there. He caught her by the shoulders. What did you do? I told them the truth, she whispered. Now they will come for both of us. Rin looked into her eyes, and in that moment he understood. Then we face it together. As the Aurelian ships descended through the clouds, beams of light cut across the night. The colony lights glowed dim but steady. Humans stood ready, not with hate, but with courage. Liren stood beside Rin, her heart racing yet calm. She realized something deep and powerful. The thing she had once mocked in humans was the very thing her own people lacked. The courage to love even when faced with fear. The sky thundered as the first ship entered atmosphere. Whatever happens, Rin said, gripping her hand, don't be afraid. I am not, she replied softly. Not anymore. The world shook as the Aurelian army approached, unaware that one of their own no longer stood with them. The war for New Terra and for her heart was about to begin. The night sky above New Terra had changed. Once it showed calm stars and the faint light of human satellites, but now it was filled with enormous alien ships. Their metallic hulls glowed in shades of silver and blue, cutting through the atmosphere like silent giants. Everyone on the colony could feel the weight of it. The hum of machines, the trembling of the ground, the fear in the air. Everything told them that war had arrived. Rin stood on the main defense platform, staring at the lights above. His uniform was covered in dust, and the wind carried the smell of fuel and metal. Around him, human soldiers moved quickly, setting up artillery and shield generators. Beside him stood Liren, her silver eyes reflecting the glow of her people's ships. She was dressed in a human pilot suit, though the alien communicator still hung at her neck. They came for me, she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled. My father leads that fleet. He thinks I have been taken hostage. Rin didn't look away from the sky. Then we tell him the truth, he said. You're not a hostage. You chose to stay. Liren shook her head. He won't believe it. The Aurelian Empire does not understand choosing humans. To them it will sound like madness. Rin gave a small, tired smile, then let them call it madness. Sometimes madness is just courage in another form. She turned to him, and for a moment she saw not a soldier, but a human who refused to give up no matter the odds. The colony's defense command center came alive with movement. Screens flickered with data, communication lines buzzed with static, and commanders spoke in sharp tones. Rin and Liren stood before the holographic map. Red dots represented the enemy fleet. Blue lights showed the colony's defenses. There were far fewer blue lights. They outnumber us 5-1, said Commander Hale, an older man with scars along his cheek. Their ships have superior firepower. We can't win a head-on fight. Then we don't fight them head-on, Rin said. We hit their weak points. We use their pride against them. Liren nodded slowly. He is right. The Aurelian fleet believes no one can challenge them. If we strike fast and disappear, they will grow impatient. Pride makes them reckless. Commander Hale hesitated. He looked at Liren, the alien who once called them unworthy. Now she was helping them fight her own people. Finally, he said, all right, we'll trust your plan. Let's make them believe humans are more than they think. That night, Rin led a small strike team into the outer valley, where the first Aurelian patrol drones had landed. The sky was filled with strange light, soft blue fire from alien engines. The soldiers moved through the shadows, guided by Liren's knowledge of Aurelian technology. They planted electromagnetic disruptors near the landing zones. As they worked, Rin glanced at Liren. You could still leave, he said quietly. If we fail, your people will destroy everything here. Liren looked up at the sky. If I leave, I will never forgive myself. I once thought humans were unworthy, but I was blind. You fight for each other even when you know you might lose. That is something my people have forgotten. Rin smiled faintly. Then we fight together. The next morning, the first attack began. The sky burned with light as Aurelian ships descended through the clouds. Energy blasts struck the ground, shaking the valley. The colony's shields flickered, then stabilized. Human fighters launched from underground hangars, their engines roaring. They were smaller and older than Aurelian ships, but they moved fast, darting like sparks between the alien cruisers. Inside the command center, Lyraean coordinated defenses. Her hands moved swiftly across the control panel, translating human commands into Aurelian codes. She used her people's technology against them, jamming signals and feeding false data. Enemy ships are confused, said a technician. They think there are 3 colonies instead of 1. Rin's voice came over the radio. Keep it up, Lyran. We're pushing them back. For a few minutes, hope filled the air. The humans had turned chaos into an advantage. But then a deep voice echoed through the radio channels. It was High Commander Thalen, Lyran's father.
Lyran of Aurelia, he said, his tone cold and thunderous.
You have betrayed your blood. Return at once or I will burn this world. Lyran froze. The sound of her father's voice made her heart twist. He knows, she whispered. He will not stop. Rin's voice came back through the radio, steady but soft. Then we stop him first. The battle grew fiercer. Aurelian warships rained plasma fire across the valley. Explosions lit up the sky like angry stars. Rin's fighter unit was hit. He ejected just in time, landing near the southern ridge. His communicator crackled with static, but he could still hear Lyran's voice calling his name. He pressed the button. I'm fine, he said between gasps. But the main cannon is down. If we don't disable their flagship soon, it's over. Lyran looked at the map. The flagship hung above the clouds, a massive ship armed with enough power to destroy the colony in one strike. She took a breath. There is one way. The beacon tower still works. If I connect it to the Aurelian network, I can send a signal directly to the fleet, override their orders. Commander Hale frowned. That's suicide. They'll trace the signal to you. I know, Lyran said, but it may make them stop long enough for the humans to strike back. Before anyone could stop her, she ran to the beacon tower. Rin reached the base just as she began the connection. Sparks danced around the tower's cables. The signal core pulsed with light. Lyran, he shouted. You don't have to do this alone. She looked back at him, her hair shining in the storm's light. This is my choice, Rin. I must show them what I have learned. He stepped closer, the wind tearing at his jacket. Then I'll protect you while you do it. Lyran smiled gently. You humans never give up, do you? Not when someone we care about is at risk. She turned to the console and began speaking in her own language. Her voice carried through the transmission lines across space to every Aurelian ship. Father, she said, I am not your enemy. The humans are not monsters. They are dreamers, builders, and fighters. You call them weak, but I have seen their strength. It is not in their weapons, but in their hearts. If you destroy them, you will destroy what little honor our people have left. There was silence. Then slowly, some of the Aurelian ships stopped firing. Confusion rippled through the fleet, but the flagship remained. Thalen's voice thundered again. You speak like them now. If they have changed you, then you are no longer my daughter. The flagship aimed its main cannon at the colony. Rin grabbed Lyran's hand. We're not done yet. Together, they rerouted the tower's energy core. The old human generator roared to life. Sparks flew everywhere. Lyran, what are you doing? Rin shouted. Sending them proof, she said. She used the beacon to broadcast a live image of the colony. Humans rescuing wounded soldiers, sharing supplies, helping each other despite fear. When Thalen saw this, his voice faltered. For the first time, doubt entered his tone. Lyran's signal reached every Aurelian channel. Her message was simple but powerful. Look at them. They fight not for conquest but for life. They fight for love. That is what it means to be worthy. The fleet hesitated. Several Aurelian captains refused to fire. Others turned their ships away. Thalen's control began to crumble. At that same moment, Rin led a final assault on the flagship. With help from the colony's fighters, he targeted the ship's energy core. The blast hit true. The flagship's weapon system shut down. Thalen's ship retreated, followed by others. The sky began to clear. When the last enemy ship vanished beyond the horizon, the colony fell silent. Smoke drifted through the air. Broken machines and fire dotted the ground, but the people were still standing. Rin helped Liren down from the tower. Her face was pale, her hands trembling from exhaustion. "You did it," he said softly. She looked at the sunrise through the smoke. "No," she whispered. "We did it." The first light of morning touched their faces. The world around them was wounded but alive. In that light, Liren finally understood something her people had forgotten long ago. Humans were not perfect, but their strength came from hope, the kind that refused to die even when the stars turned against them, and in that moment she knew she would never again call them unworthy. The sun rose over New Terra, shining through the smoke and broken clouds left behind by the great battle. The ground was scarred, but the air was filled with something new: peace. The war that had nearly destroyed the colony was finally over. Humans walked among the ruins, helping one another. Some repaired the machines, some built shelters, and others carried food and water to the injured. There were tired faces, but also proud ones. The people of New Terra had survived what no one thought possible. And at the edge of the colony, Rin and Liren stood side by side, watching the quiet sky where alien ships had once burned like fire. "It feels strange," Rin said, his voice soft. "After so much fighting, the silence almost sounds louder than the battle." Liren nodded. "It does. In my world, silence means victory or death. But here it feels like life." She turned toward him. The light of the morning reflected in her silver eyes, and for the first time, she allowed herself to smile fully. "Your people fought with heart, Rin. I never believed such strength could come from kindness." Rin looked at her, still covered in dust and ash, yet standing tall like a warrior of light. "You fought with us. That's why we made it." She looked away, shy for a moment. "Maybe. Or maybe I just wanted to believe in something better." The following days were filled with rebuilding. The humans worked hard to fix what was lost while also helping the wounded soldiers from the Aurelian fleet who'd been left behind. Many of those alien soldiers were confused. They had expected humans to hate them, to take revenge, but instead, they were treated with care. Food, water, and medicine were shared equally. One young Aurelian pilot, still recovering from his injuries, looked at Liren in disbelief. "You are one of us," he said. "Why help them?" "They are our enemies," Liren answered calmly. "Not enemies, only strangers we did not understand." She looked at the humans around her. They could have destroyed us when we fell, but they chose to save us instead. That is what makes them different. The pilot lowered his gaze, ashamed. For the first time he questioned what the Empire had taught him. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Aurelian Empire was shaken. News of Liren's message had spread to every system. Soldiers, diplomats, and citizens spoke in whispers about the human colony and the princess who had stood against her father's war. The Council of Elders demanded answers from High Commander Thalen, Liren's father. He sat alone in his command chamber, watching the recording of his daughter's broadcast. The way she spoke with fire in her eyes, the way she defended humanity with truth instead of weapons. For years, Thalen had believed that strength was shown through dominance and control. But now, as he watched the footage of humans helping wounded Aurelian soldiers, he began to feel something unfamiliar. Doubt. Could it be that his daughter was right? Could love, kindness, and courage truly be stronger than conquest? He sat in silence, remembering her last words. They fight not for conquest, but for life. For the first time in his long military career, Thalen felt the weight of regret. Back on New Terra, the colony began to heal. The forests surrounding the settlement slowly turned green again, and the skies cleared. Human and Aurelian engineers worked together, building new structures that used both human technology and Aurelian design. Children from both species played together among the half-repaired buildings. It was something no one had imagined possible, a future where two once enemies could live side by side. Liren helped set up a new communication center, one that could reach both human and Aurelian space. She wanted it to become a bridge of peace, not a weapon of war. Rin often visited her there. Sometimes he helped fix the power lines. Other times he just brought her tea and talked while she worked. "You seem happier these days," Rin said one afternoon, as she adjusted the glowing panels. Liren smiled softly. "Because I see hope again, for my people and for yours." It feels like a new beginning. Rin leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You sound like one of us now. Maybe I am, she said with a small laugh. At least a little. A few weeks later, a strange signal appeared in the sky. It was an Aurelian ship, but it came without weapons. The humans raised their defenses, fearing another attack, but the ship sent only one message, a request to land. Lyraean recognized the code immediately. It was her father's personal channel. Her heart began to race. Rin noticed the worry in her face. Do you want to see him? I must, she said quietly. He is my father, and he must hear the truth from me, not from the council. When the Aurelian ship landed, the colony gathered to watch. The air was thick with tension. The ramp opened, and High Commander Thalen stepped out, his silver armor gleaming in the sunlight. He was taller than most, his face sharp and proud, but his eyes showed sadness. Lyraean walked toward him, unafraid. The soldiers around them stayed still. Rin stood behind her, ready if needed, but trusting her completely. Thalen stopped a few steps away. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then in a quiet voice, he spoke. You disobeyed me. You stood with the enemy. Yet I see no hatred in your eyes. Why? Lyraean raised her chin. Because I saw who they are, Father. I saw courage, kindness, and love. You taught me that strength means never bending, but you were wrong. True strength is found in compassion. He looked at her, his jaw tightening. You risked everything for them. For a soldier who is not of our kind, Lyraean's voice softened. He showed me what it means to care without reason. To fight not for victory, but for what is right. Isn't that the lesson we should all learn? Thalen glanced at Rin, who stood silently a few steps behind. For a moment he saw not an enemy soldier, but a man who had risked his life to protect someone else's daughter. Finally, the old commander sighed. Perhaps the Empire has forgotten its heart. He placed a hand on Lyraean's shoulder. You have given me much to think about. He turned toward Rin. You protected her when you had no reason to. For that I owe you a debt that no rank can measure. Rin nodded respectfully. We just did what was right, sir. Thalen gave one last look at his daughter. You have changed, Lyraean, maybe. For the better. Then he stepped back and said, I will speak to the council. The war is over. When his ship left the colony, the humans and Aurelians together cheered. That night, under a clear and peaceful sky, Rin and Lyraean sat near the hill that overlooked the colony. The stars stretched endlessly above them, glowing with quiet beauty. Rin leaned back on the grass, tired but content. So what happens now? He asked. Lyraean looked up at the stars. Now we rebuild, together. My people need to learn, and yours have much to teach. Maybe one day we will no longer be two races, but one people of the stars. Rin smiled. That sounds like a future worth fighting for. She turned to him, her voice gentle. You humans always fight for what you love. That is your greatest gift, he met her gaze. And maybe your greatest gift is teaching us how to make peace when we forget how. For a long moment they said nothing more. The world was quiet, but it was a peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that comes when hope finally wins. Weeks passed, and a new message arrived from the Aurelian Empire. It announced the beginning of the Peace Accord of New Terra, signed by both humans and Aurelians. Trade routes were opened, ambassadors were exchanged, and for the first time two once-distant species worked together toward a shared future. The story of Lyraean and Rin spread across the stars. Some called it a legend, others a miracle, but those who had seen it knew it was simply the truth. It became a symbol of what humanity always stood for: hope, compassion, and the will to love even in the darkest times. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Rin walked beside Lyraean through the new colony streets. Children laughed nearby, both human and Aurelian. The buildings shone with lights of both worlds. Lyraean stopped and looked at the sky again. I once thought humans were unworthy of love, she said softly. Now I know they are the reason love exists at all. Rin smiled, placing a hand over his chest. And you reminded us that love can change even the stars. They stood together, the sky glowing gold above them, and for the first time in history, the future felt wide open. Not for one species, but for all.